This one is the second of a series of meetings lovingly curated by our redoubtable Daniel Gava, especially for ICI London. I'm so grateful to Daniel for bringing together in conversation two illustrious speakers tonight, speakers such as Helen Brocklebank and Moritz Waldemeyer. Both Helen and Moritz are sitting at the cutting edge in their respective fields, and they are forces to be reckoned with. So the overarching theme of these meetings revolves around a reflection on the theme of Made in Italy today. And in fact, this topic is seen through a thoroughly contemporary, state-of-the-art perspective and angle. This carries significant implications, of course, for our design, for our trade, and every cultural expression that we call Italian in the world today. So I'm delighted to leave the floor to Daniel Gava, who will expand on the rationale of tonight's meeting and provide a full introduction to our wonderful guests. So thank you very much and enjoy the evening.
I actually had prepared an intro speech, but there's no need. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Katja, for the lovely words. And thank you all for coming. I think we should go straight to the discussion. Maybe to put you two in context so people may know you better. Can we hear a little bit of yourself? Should we start with Helen?
Sure. Well, I'm illustrious and cutting edge, as is Moritz. I love that. I've never been illustrious before, but I'm just going to own it. I'll just sit here and be illustrious. So I'm Helen Brocklebank. I'm the Chief Executive of Walpole, and Walpole is the organisation in the UK which is designed to protect, promote and develop the business of British luxury. And we work really closely with Alta Gamma, who's the equivalent in Milan, who's there to whose kind of mission is very focused around Made in Italy. We have 250 members of people that you'll know, like Burberry or Bentley, Manolo Blahnik, Harrods. So lots of, and like Italy, a lot of fashion, lots of design, lots of cars, a big kind of drinks and spirits sector. But the idea of national soft power is absolutely at the heart of the success of luxury. And so if I kind of frame this by saying that this year we had our continent, Europe, had our first $500 billion business, which is LVMH. So our superpower in Europe really is not tech, it's not finance, it's not big pharma, it's luxury. And luxury is a sector that really depends on kind of made in. So that's my kind of frame. So whilst I'm very much from the UK, my job is all about British brands, the synergies and the parallels about kind of the idea of made in, of kind of national culture, of soft power, are things that I'm really, really passionate about, and I hope I'll be able to speak on tonight. How illustrious was that? Was it illustrious enough, Moritz?
Just about.
Please be more illustrious.
Oh wow, that's quite a challenge.
I think your hat is very much more illustrious than I could ever be. I was trying quite hard on the illustrious stuff.
Right, yeah. Well, the hat is made in Italy. It's Borsalino, so the only hat you can possibly wear in this environment here. But the candle actually was made in the UK, so it's a collaborative effort. But just a little bit about myself. I run a design studio here in London, Studio Waldemeyer, together with Nazanin, who's sitting over there. And we like to play with light. My background is I grew up in an artist family. My grandparents were painters, but then I was very much drawn to technology, and I studied engineering. And so I'm lucky enough to sort of have a bit of an understanding of both of these worlds, and I try to bring them together in our work. And our work sort of goes across quite vastly different fields and industries. And we quite enjoy jumping from one place to the other and maybe do some cross-pollination. So we've worked in the music industry, we've dressed quite important people in light, like Bono and JK of Jamiroquai, to name two. We've worked in the automotive world, we've worked with Bentley, very much enjoyed that experience, but we also work within architectural context, light installations, chandeliers. Actually, the studio started in chandeliers. I worked with Nadia Swarovski very closely on her Crystal Palace project. That's not really made in Italy, but it still has a little bit of that made in sort of important message. So yeah, that's how we got started. And hello, welcome.
So the reason why we wanted to have these two guests is to get a perspective of Made in Italy from the outside. Otherwise, it's the usual, Made in Italy self-celebration. We are the best, blah blah. But let's have a look into what other things about, and that's maybe one of the best way to hear it from you, because you have this international experience and you are daily, basically, in contact with international, companies, and you have, as you mentioned, you have an illustrious overview of the business worldwide. But let's start with your very personal perception of Made in Italy, regardless of the business side or the career. Let's say, how do you started, or when you started to see, to understand Made in Italy, to see it as a brand or a concept?
I think, isn't it so anybody that lives in the UK it's so ingrained as an expression of Italian culture. You walk around any of the big cities and you see the kind of the neoclassical architecture. You go to any of the great country houses and you see that. As a child, you're fed spaghetti bolognese. It's like your favourite food. As a parent, you give your kids pasta pesto. You're kind of, you become obsessed by going to an Italian restaurant. I mean, drinking Prosecco and having a great time. We've even kind of all rebranded ice cream as gelato because it makes it sound cool. So, for years we couldn't get a cup of coffee in England until we discovered, the kind of espresso and cappuccino. How kind of like Italian. So the kind of the pervasive and wonderful Italian culture, I think, is something that we experience really well firsthand. I mean, one of our members, there's a guy called Paolo, Italian, who runs Smythson, a very, very English business. He says Made in Italy is the world's oldest marketing campaign, and you can really see that. And I think that's why it's so powerful, because it's not just in kind of luxury, which is my world. It's in the kind of the food you eat every day. It's in a kind of an appreciation and kind of closed in an idea of quality, of extraordinary artistic culture, of a kind of sprezzatura, a kind of a lifestyle that you really aspire to. And I think those things are incredibly, the power of that is, it's great. So it was no surprise when I was doing a bit of Googling in preparation for this to discover that Made in Italy is the third most powerful brand in the whole world. But I think, what your point about kind of, I can fangirl for hours on Made in Italy because I am very obsessed by it. But your point about not appreciating it you don't appreciate your own national, one of these things that's appreciated abroad much, much more powerfully. And I really see that with British luxury, that you go to America or China or Korea or, you move outside Europe, and Made in Britain is unbelievably exciting and beautiful and really, really well understood. And nobody in Britain goes, that's great because it's made in Britain. So, but I do sense there's a much more of a domestic love of Made in Italy there. But as a powerful brand, we live and breathe it, don't we, in this country? So, sorry, that was quite long, but I'm going to go to the rest.
That's fine. I was about to say that we normally as a culture, commercially, for example, all the companies that manufacture things, the first thing they think about is to sell the products in the foreign market. While I noticed that most of the British brands, unless it's like an international top British brand, but let's say the normal British brands, they don't see the opportunity to sell more in the foreign markets?
I think at the high end, definitely yes. But I think what's so successful about Made in Italy, from my perspective, is that actually very, you're kind of, I mean, I mentioned pasta, your most everyday product, or or mozzarella or prosciutto. I mean, you get incredibly beautiful, very, very artisanal, traditional, expensive prosciutto, and it's extraordinary. But you can even get it in the supermarket. So I think that's where Made in Italy has been so successful, because it transcends everything. It means quality and a kind of sense of a love of life and a joy and a pleasure. But it does go from everything from, your £3 bag of pasta to a £3 million car. I mean, so that's the breadth of it is exciting. Yeah.
We like to promote it.
And that sense of joy and creativity and quality is there through and through. So I think that's why it's very successful. So.
What about you?
Well, maybe just from a very, very practical point of view as a designer. So you come up with an idea and you want to create something, okay? And then you think about like, okay, who's going to do this part for me? Who's going to do that part? Where do I get it assembled? And you start looking around, and obviously you start like very close, because that's more easy to get to. So you're in London. Then you look around in Britain, there might be like 1 or 2 options, but they're usually expensive. They're okay if you need something very, very quickly, and are happy to pay the price. But then all of a sudden you run out of space in Britain, and then the next stop really is Italy. And then all of a sudden it's all there. So you find a company that will work in plastics, or an electronics manufacturer, like in our case, or somebody who will make the glass, somebody who will like put it together, and somebody who will then also go and install it somewhere, or distribute it for you. So like just from a very practical point of view, it's like the obvious choice. But it's so much more than just that. Then you go to the company, and then you meet the owner, and then you go and have a lunch with him, and all of a sudden there's this relationship, and it becomes like a very human story, so you're really drawn to it. It sort of pulls you in, and so there's this axis between here and there that makes things happen, really, and makes things happen in a beautiful way.
Yes. Same as in the case when Helen was saying about that we like to export from the supermarket level food to the high-end typical niche product. The same thing is happens with manufacturers in Italy. They're very open to employ foreign designers. They're very open to welcome foreign ideas, and they're more than happy to make it happen. So what you described is actually also another thing that happens quite frequently in different sectors in Italy. And another question for you: do you think the concept of the idea of Made in Italy, which I understand is quite positive and you're quite passionate about it, does it match with the perception of Italy as a country? Because sometimes we are bombarded by a lot of bad perceptions, the bureaucracy, whatever, you name it. But then when you talk about Made in Italy, you have this reaction like yours, like, oh wow, it's fantastic, United Experts. So how, from the outside, how do you see the two together?
I mean, so I think there's 2 layers in Italy. You've got like government, bureaucracy and all of that, and it's extremely dysfunctional, or appears to be. And then you have the entrepreneurs. And they're actually like super switched on, and they're like passionate, and they run their companies. They know what's important, like the quality and the materials and all of that. And it's a completely different ball game when you're at that level. And that's the level that you interact with when it comes to the Made in Italy. So I think Italy really functions very well on that scale. And the two don't really seem to interfere with each other, or not enough for it to be detrimental. That's my sort of perception of it.
Yeah, I mean, I'd 100% agree. I mean, the great thing about a really strong cultures where you have, you've exported a sense of associations around the country, is that it's really, really robust. I mean, we've really seen this in the UK, where anybody that's lived in the UK over the last 6 years has known that we've had some quite weird and interesting decisions going on in our government. You know, we kind of open the papers and you think everybody's gone demented. You can look at the COVID inquiry and you think, oh my God, it's actually as bad as I thought it was. Nobody knows any of that stuff. I mean, nobody cares, and that's the amazing thing. So we kind of, you know, if you work with Italian brands or kind of Italian people running British businesses, as I do, you know that the kind of, you know, in Italy there are things like the, you know, like bureaucracy. There are some, you know, there's the government can be in quite a tricky place. You know, there's all sorts of things. Nobody. Soft pass super robust and nobody cares about that. They go, but look, I just love it. You know, it's so beautiful. Look at the Renaissance. Look at the kind of beautiful buildings. Look at this handbag. You know, so I think those things really transcend it, and I think that's why it's important. And I think the thing about made in, because that culture becomes translated into objects, whether it's mozzarella or prosciutto or Ferragamo shoes or Ferrari, kind of doesn't really matter. It's kind of all of those things are a little talisman. They're a kind of a tangible reminder of your love affair with something, your aspiration as a human being to have a little bit of that dolce vita, or the kind of, you know, the effortlessness of the kind of charm, the kind of, you know, I mean, there you are in Portofino drinking something marvellous, and, you know, the buildings that are made. I mean, so that, you know, those are the things that come much more closely. And of course, if you're trading on a daily basis, you know, there are frustrations, but it's actually the reason that those things endure is because of the power of brand. And, you know, and every time you eat that beautiful piece of cheese, you go, or drink this beautiful drink, you go, oh, yeah. You know, it's amazing. So I think that's the...
From your perspective, this, like maybe in Italy, let's call it phenomenal, this powerful, you know, concept or brand, or, you know, we can call it many names. Was it something that came out from Italy spontaneously, or was it a phenomenon created by foreigners? Because you know why I'm asking you this? Because we have the tendency in Italy, generally speaking, to always look at Germans, the English are like this, you know, and maybe we don't say that about the French, but it's our, you know why it's that. But you know, we tend to look abroad to find, oh wow, you know, they do this better or whatever, and actually also from my experience, I don't know if anybody here other agree, when you go abroad, you're like, oh no, Italy, la la, oh you live in a beautiful country, la la, and sometimes you feel like, wow, it's more appreciated abroad than in my homeland. So what do you think?
I do think that's true, and I don't think that's an Italian problem. I think that's the same anywhere. But if you think, I mean, if you think about, I mean, maybe you're bored of Campari spirits or an espresso, and you just go like, yeah, espresso, this thing I have every day, it's like whatever. And we say, oh my God, the romance of it. Like I'm going, oh, scone. Who wants a scone? Who wants afternoon tea? That's so boring and so appalling and so dull. And why does anybody care about the royal family? And then you talk to somebody from, I don't know, America or anywhere in the whole world, and they go, oh my God, just saw the king and he looked amazing and he must have been so proud. I'm going, I didn't even notice. Or, and like, you know, I'm dreaming of that glass of, you know, some extraordinary red wine from Tuscany and, you know, in some amazing mountain village. When, you know, I'm ignoring everything. So I think that's natural. But I do think it's really important to instill domestically a sense of kind of pride and reinforce that. And I think particularly for future generations, because it's easy to rest on your laurels. So it was really interesting to hear that the Ministry for Economic Development in Italy has rebranded as the Ministry for Made in Italy. So I think that's an important domestic statement of how do we appreciate ourselves. And there will be on the 14th of April, which is Leonardo da Vinci's birthday. Great creator, great inventor, obviously very famous around the world, hopefully also very famous in Italy, a kind of Made in Italy Day, like International Women's Day. So I think these things, telling ourselves the story, and part of what I do every day is to try and get everybody in the UK to go, actually, we do make some amazingly beautiful stuff here. It's see yourself, other people see you, but appreciate it. Anybody watch RuPaul's Drag Race? If you don't, I won't go on, but there's a kind of like, if you don't love yourself, how the hell is anybody going to love you? And I think that's, you know, that's it. So you have to tell the story, and actually for practical reasons too, because the craft skills that are at the root of, you know, of making some incredible artisanal product. We talk a lot about artisanal intelligence versus artificial intelligence. You need young people to come into those industries, and actually that's why it's important to tell that Made in Italy story domestically as strongly as it is told internationally. Because that, you know, it makes sense economically. That extraordinary export happens because of the making in Italy, but you have to preserve that for future generations, and that's not easy.
You can see that actually this generational passing on is very strong when it comes to the food culture. Because you can see when you go to Italy, there's like an unbelievable amount of like new restaurants popping up, like new concepts, like a really interesting way of dealing with food, and you see the young generation really embracing it for themselves and also demanding the quality. So there's like no decrease in that. So they're doing a really good job in that sector. I don't know if it's quite the same with the sort of manufacturing and the artisanal.
It's much more problematic in manufacturing, particularly like fine leather goods, shoes, you know, ready to wear, the kinds of things, furniture making. So those things that the luxury sector really loves, you know, because it's trying to get somebody who is coming through school to go, I really want to work with my hands. So there's, but actually those skills gaps in, or you know, or kind of an ageing crafts population are not unique to Italy. I mean, they really exist in the UK. They really exist in Germany. I think there's something like 38,000 unfilled crafts jobs in Germany. So you know, so I think a resurgence of the pleasure and beauty and fulfilment of an artisanal job is quite interesting for a Gen Z, and we have a responsibility to make those opportunities available for kids who might find it interesting.
That leads me to another question I had in mind. So this is your perception of Made in Italy, more or less is, you know, 90%, 99% of the population, whatever. But for the younger generation, do you think these guys understand? They purchase, for example, luxury good, or you know, they appreciate maybe an installation that you do maybe in Italy, or maybe a collaboration with you know, with Borsellino, including the element of the Made in Italy, or they just don't care? Do they buy a brand because it's the brand, or because I'm actually, I can tell you, last year when we had the same talk, we had the head of Ferrari Northern Europe here, and Laura Bethan Green, the British designer, and they both said, actually, no, in our case, when there's a lucky young Ferrari customer, you actually appreciate the fact that the car is partially, you know, handmade, made in Italy. There is a tradition, blah blah. And Bethan was saying that young designers, anyway, they refer to a lot of Italian designers, even from the past, to develop their culture in design. What about in your own arena? What do you think? Is it the same, or young guys are?
I think it's maybe a little bit problematic when you see that all the brands are ever striving to go further up market. And sort of really leaving behind their base, then it becomes a ever more difficult sell, isn't it, into a younger generation, and then they might run the danger to become irrelevant. I don't really know how like luxury brands go about that. Maybe you'll have an answer for that.
Well, I mean, luxury is interesting because it really trades on kind of heritage and tradition, but also it has to always be looking forward and being relevant, kind of mining an interesting story from the past, but in a new, interesting way to capture a new generation. And we do know from, I mean, the latest data set from Bain & Company says that 80% of luxury customers will be Gen Z or millennial by 2030. So the young, you know, bringing a younger person into it is important. But I think fashion carries a lot of that, actually, because if you think of I mean, we've all probably got a good sense in our heads of a Dolce & Gabbana campaign, that kind of, you know, the beautiful, you know, like very Sicilian kind of women, you know, I mean, it's really trading on that kind of Italian culture and heritage. So I think luxury does a good job of reinforcing the kind of made in Italy or the kind of Italian cultural part of it and giving a new term of reference. There's an information, just the information's acquired in different ways. So we maybe, if anybody of my age would have read magazines when they were and got their love of things or the kind of knowledge from magazines, probably. And now you're, I don't know, you might be playing Forza and you're looking, you're buying a Ferrari because you know that's to be a really good car, and that's your experience of it as a kind of young person, or you're on TikTok and you're kind of actually really, I think the views for making handmade shoes in Italy on TikTok are in the millions. So there's kind of, I'm not despondent about this. I think the allure is there, and I think it's so embedded in the culture, but I think we have to, as luxury brands do every day, you've got to work hard to make it relevant. It's got to be, and find the medium of now.
Also to carry that on. And what do British luxury brand fish from the Made in Italy pot, kind of? I know that, for example, we discussed it earlier, Paul Smith just got the Stella d'Italia, which is the equivalent of the OBE from the Italian embassy, because he has been working with Italy many years for fabrics. Oswald Boateng also works a lot with Italy with his fabrics. So there's a lot of connection there.
The symbiosis is absolutely fantastic. So when the lots of the very long-standing relationships, like Burberry bought its factory making kind of fine leather goods, handbags, shoes, etc. in Italy. Manolo Blahnik bought its factory in northern Italy. So that relationship between kind of making and and design across borders is really important. Daniel Lee, who's now the designer at Burberry, cut his teeth at Bottega Veneta. So I think that there's a close-knit relationship. I mean, I'm wearing a shirt that was designed in the UK by an incredible UK designer called Sabina Savage, but we don't have anymore in this country fine a kind of ladies wear making skills. It's at scale. So, and our silk making isn't what it was. So she goes to Italy to have something like this made. Her vision kind of saw my shoes are. I think my shoes is Louboutin a French brand. Anyway, they're Louboutins, but they're made in Italy. So I think in luxury that European production is really important, and that mark of quality that you get in Italy. But in luxury, you need to make it in the country that it's strongest in. So fine leather goods, of course you want to make it in Italy. I don't want a pair of gloves made by somebody in Salisbury. They've got, have they got any, can we make gloves in Salisbury? I don't know. But, if I want a beautiful whiskey, I don't want to go to Italy for it. So I think national provenance is really an important part of that experience of luxury brands. So, and like an Italian shoe brand that's really successful, if they decide to have espadrilles one season, then actually you don't want those espadrilles made in Italy, you want them made in Spain. So where the skills are, you need to go there. But fortunately, Italy's pretty good at making, I think, everything that I could probably want.
There's a very strong axis anyway between especially London and Italy. So when you're going to Milan Design Week every year, you're walking the street, like everybody from London will be there, you bump into them, you don't even have to take an appointment. So it becomes sort of like the center of the Design Week. Yeah, exactly. So we're all there. Milan has become sort of this like epicenter for design and therefore also for making, manufacturing, exchanging ideas. It cannot be underestimated. And so many cities around the world have tried to make their own design week, but Milan is king. There's like no contest.
We also took the Campari guys because to make you feel comfortable also here in London, like thinking about the design week, and there you go. But if I think about your experience, you've been working everywhere in the world, basically. And you've been working with like superstars, like you were saying, and doing amazing installation. You covered it all. You invented a lot of things for the first time, as far as I know, in terms of technology with lighting, etc. And in all of this wealth of experience, how, if any, how Made in Italy was relevant in that sense?
Well, it really enabled a lot of these things because, as I say, you try to sort of pull something like any crazy idea off. You need to have collaborators, you need to have people that have the technology, the skills, machinery, access to materials, and they have to be able to do it also in mostly like very short time frames. So there needs to be some flexibility. You know, so the Italian contacts are absolutely superior in all of those respects. So we'll have a commission, and normally there's a very short time frame. We need to make something happen. First call is to people we know in Italy. We used to have the most amazing enabler. His name was Raimondo. Unfortunately, he has passed on a few years ago, and he would be like the first phone call. I would pick up the phone. Yes, exactly. Like Raimondo, we have to do something crazy. We need a plastic manufacturer. We need to make these electronics. It needs to be installed by that time there. And he never said no. He's like, hang on, let me have a look. Let me make some phone calls. And then he would come back, and then usually he would be able to deliver, and also within budget, which is. So there's this flexibility as well, and the passion to make something happen. You know, you don't get that in Germany. You know, they might be great at technology and engineering, but flexibility, sorry. No, exactly. Yeah, and I'm German, you know, and I've tried. Yeah.
Okay, one very last question before we open for possible questions to the public. If there is something that we Italians, and we understand we can do everything, we can do from the prosciutto to the technology, we can, fine. But if there was something that, from your point of view, from your perspective, that we could, you know, do better, or maybe you mentioned the Made in Italy department, down the ministries, and maybe that is one step, or if there is anything, of course, that we could communicate better, or maybe, I don't know, what do you think? There's something that, do we have any flaws, basically? Do we have any...
Are you asking me how much do we love you? How much do we love you and everything you stand for, Daniel? If you ask me that, it's like 100%, you know, so I'm getting this Moritz first and then come. That's a hard question to answer, the last thing.
It's a surprise question. I told you it was like... no, while you...
Let me count the ways. But I think it's... I was really cheered when I talked to my opposite number, Alta Gamma, and heard about the Made in Italy Day, and I heard about what she's got an adopt a school program. So I think that the will, the strength of the brand of Made in Italy depends on people, passionate people behind it, prepared to kind of always push it forward, stop it stagnating, always be new and exciting, and create initiatives like with her, you know, with getting all the luxury brands to adopt a school, so that you can talk about artisanal craft and kind of the culture and all the things that everybody like me outside Italy fangirls about. So I think that's really super important. I think the Made in Italy Day I'm really excited about, and I'm prepared to steal that shamelessly. So if you start hearing about a Made in Britain Day, I just get it from Italy. You know? So, it's like genius. So talent imitates, genius steals. So I think those things are important, and I think the only thing I would have said before I started thinking about this was that how do you make sure that message is landing for future generations and is landing domestically, because that's something I think about every day in regard to British brands. And to hear from my opposite number that she and many other people who've got skin in the game were doing that was really cheering. So bravo.
No, grazie.
It's like 3 words of Italian, all of which are mostly spaghetti bolognese, and apart from brave. Or brutta figura, that's enough. I love that. Yeah.
We can chat about some other words later for other occasions.
After another campaign.
Yes, we can have. What do you think, Moritz? Is there something that we could do better, or do you agree with Helen and say, no, you're good girl?
I suppose bringing the new generation, given that we don't have Raimondo anymore, we need to have a new Raimondo, yeah. So Exactly. Yes.
Well, there's a big effort from the Italian institutions here to, I mean abroad, not only here, to try to bring back talent, in Italy and try to, create this continuity with, amazing things that we do in every sector. So hopefully, one day they will see the young guys will save the world. I really believe in that.
I mean, I think, and it's also, without wanting to bring a downer on the room, there is a kind of moral imperative around this, because the kind of soft power that is transmitted to the whole world through things like Made in Italy, that understanding of each other's cultures, the empathy that we have for each other through that, the more we understand each other as human beings, the more we trade with each other, the more we kind of see that object, the more I feed my kids pasta pesto. I find that something vice versa. These are the things that, soft power is an important factor in our lives, because it is untrade, because it is there to stop wars happening. And I think in a world where we are all very conscious of the geopolitical fractures and perhaps the rise that we were talking about of extremism, of the right wing, those kinds of things. I think sharing of culture, the exchange of what makes us human, the appreciation for each other's cultures, these things are really carried by Made in Italy. So every nation has its equivalent, and I feel they're more important than ever.
Thank you.
I would like to thank the Institute, of course, Katia, the director. I would like to thank all of you for coming over, to the speakers, to Poltrona Frau for the beautiful furniture. Thank you very much. And especially now we'll go and thank everybody, Campari, and have a drink.
I'm very happy for the event tonight. I think we had an amazing turnout of people. Actually, we were a little bit anxious because we got an over-response of the RSVP. Everything turned out really well. And I think the conversation this evening has been amazing. The two speakers really dwelled into the topic in a perfect way. And for us, for me and for the director of the Institute, it was very important to have a perspective on Made in Italy today from non-Italian person, so we could understand from other culture, from other point of view, how good we are apparently, because what they said, it was all a compliment from the very beginning until the very end.
Made in Italy is an incredibly interesting discussion, so the opportunity to kind of get under the skin and think about it, and then to talk about it in front of such an enthusiastic and engaged audience was really interesting to me.
Well, it's been a very, very pleasant evening and such a beautiful setting, very nice audience, and I think we all had fun.